So we get a lot of questions, and a lot of employers complain about the role of the union in their organization. And a lot of employers complain about the attitude of the union and the behavior of the union and the things that the union does to disrupt their operations. So we're going to address that today in sort of a different way of looking at things. First and foremost, management gets the unions they deserve. The way management behaves, the way management treats the union, is going to impact the labor relations for that organization and how the union in turn behaves to management. People have to remember that it takes two to sign a collective agreement. So if you have terms and conditions in your collective agreement that aren't meeting your needs, you have just as much blame as the union for having those terms in your collective agreement. The role of management is to really understand that the union is there to play a role. They are there to be part of the dynamic of your organization. In a sense, without a union there, in a unionized without a union in a unionized environment is very similar to playing chess without an opponent. It takes the two together to come and figure out how the dynamic should work. When I think about labor relations, I actually like to think back to the old days of Looney Tunes. And I realize I'm dating myself with this example. But those of you who ever watched Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and all their friends, there used to be a great example of Sam the sheepdog and Wile E. Coyote. So Wile E. Coyote was a coyote. And his mission on these particular series of cartoons, these were not the ones about getting the Roadrunner, his mission on these cartoons was to actually steal sheep. And so he would spend his days plotting on how to steal sheep. Conversely, Sam the sheepdog, as you probably figured out by now, his role was to protect sheep and make sure that they didn't get stolen by coyotes. But what's interesting about the dynamic is at the start of every segment, you would see Wile E. Coyote and Sam the sheepdog walking together. They would have their lunch baskets in one hand. Perhaps Sam the sheepdog normally had a hard hat in his other hand. And they would walk together and chat about how was your weekend, how was your life, blah, 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 blah. And it wasn't until the moment that they punched the clock at the shepherd's place, I suppose, I'm not really sure what you would call their place of work, that the dynamic changed. And when they actually had to become opponents, they did. They separated, they actually interacted based on the behavior of each other. So the more creative and daring that Wile E. Coyote got, the more aggressive that Sam the sheepdog got, and vice versa. It's definitely a dynamic, not a one-way relationship. But at the end of the day, the whistle blew, and they both punched the punch card out to finish their day, and they walked home conversing again as friends. Now, why I bring up that example is it points out some really important initiatives in labor relations. One, that no matter what happens, management and the union continue to have a relationship. In order for labor relations to be successful in any organization, management and the union have to have an underlying functional relationship. Many people often talk about labor relations being a lot like a marriage. The bigger difference, of course, is that in labor relations there is no divorce. People tend to forget this during times of conflict, especially given a strike or a lockout or other negative labor situation. They forget that they have to go back to working with the other pair. And that's why I bring up the example of Wile E. Coyote and Sam the sheepdog. No matter what happened, they never lost sight of the fact that they had to work together.